Welcome back to another episode of Team Nuts TV. I'm your host Billy, and today we are here with episode 2 of Learning with Legends, a team builder guide. And today we are joined by Aquarius. Say hello.
Hi. Hello.
Thank you for joining.
This is how I do all of these collab videos. It's just like
hello.
Hi.
I'm sure Aquarius needs no introduction to anybody watching this. I'm sure everyone knows who Aquarius is. You've become pretty much a staple of the Draft League community, I feel. Obviously commissioner of the CGT.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably what I'm best known for. I don't think I'm a staple by any means.
I think so. I think you have in recent months, certainly.
Maybe. I don't know. That's a burden. But that's fair.
So yes, hopefully you all catched episode 1 with Seth. And enjoyed that. So for this one, obviously we're joined by Aquarius, and we're going to kind of start off in the same way, and I'm going to ask you, Aquarius, so tell me a little bit about yourself in terms of Draft League experience. So do you tend to stick to the Wi-Fi scene, the showdown scene? How regularly do you often make playoffs? How many titles have you got under your belt, etc.?
Yeah. So I began playing in Generation 6, different community, different alt, whatever. Took a pretty big gap during the start of the during around like the end of the Sun and Moon, start of Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon era. Came back into draft around the end of 2018. Played majority showdown for about that year and a half, accumulated maybe 3 showdown championships in that time. And after that, I took a little stint at Gen 7 Wi-Fi at the very, very end of Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, which was like upload thing. Like I was in the first rendition of the BBR. There was this small little Ubers league called GUU that I was in. But neither of them ended up really taking off or anything like that. So that was just kind of for fun. And then Gen 8 rolled around, and I was too broke. I didn't have a Switch. I didn't have an Elgato or anything like that. So resorted back to the showdown stuff. Would still upload some of the things. Like I played in a league called PTL, played in another league called PIBA, and didn't get too many championships during that start of Gen 8. I think I got 1 in a low tier league, 1 in an Ubers league, and I don't think I got any regular level championships at that point. But as the generation started rounding out a little bit more, I started to kind of go on the more up and up and accumulate a few more showdown championships there. And then once I kind of felt a little bit more confident in myself and such, and I was actually in this moment doing a lot of tutorial videos on YouTube about just like EVing or like building for Draft League or like forming cores or like playing defensively, playing offensively, using pivoting, like a ton of different like strategies and stuff. Those things started taking off, and it kind of emboldened me to finally like kind of buckle down, make the commitment, buy a Switch. Because I didn't even have a Switch. Buy a Switch, buy an Elgato. Do all that, and since then I have won 2 Wi-Fi championships in the 4 Wi-Fi leagues I've competed in that have completed. So I'd say that's like pretty good. I think.
No, that's very good. It's certainly a lot more.
And like you said, as you mentioned, I commissioned the CGT, so that was another big thing.
So you say you started off, your first championships were in a Ubers and a low tier. Would you say
for Gen 8, yeah? For
Gen 8, yeah, sorry. So would you say that that's kind of like more of a niche to you? Do you prefer the low tiers or the Ubers? Do you prefer these more niche tiers, or do you prefer the regular?
So I prefer regular, just in the sense that I think that it's just there's a lot more versatility in my mind in the regular tier. I just think it's a very sort of balanced, straightforward metagame. Ubers I found to be often unbalanced to some extent, and it's kind of hard to pick up the pieces on that one. So it's never really caught my interest, even though I have an Ubers championship. It's never been something that I like drastically want to pursue. I know a lot of other people love it a lot. Low tier I've enjoyed a lot. I was in this small league called LTC that like Dr. Slacking was in and Jack Gravy was in before they sort of started doing Wi-Fi leagues.
Two fellow Brits, yeah.
And we had a lot of low tier fun. I won that once. And I'd say that is probably my favorite experience with low tier mons. I haven't done any kind of alternative format on Wi-Fi, I would say. All of those sort of things have been experimentally done on Showdown for me.
Right.
And I've never done LC. That's the other one I've never done, but I don't really have interest to. So
LC's fun. I did it in Gen 7. A lot of fun.
Is it?
Yeah.
It just seems like a different game. Like I'm like, I don't know if I'm.
I would love to see a Little Cup league, but still level 50. So baby Pokemon at level 50 rather than level 5. I'd love to see.
Yeah,
that.
I commissioned a league kind of similar to that. Yeah, it wasn't purely LC mons, but there was like other random shit, like I don't know, like Swat Balloon or like Spinda or like whatever.
Well, if you decide to run another one, let me know. I'd love to give it a try.
Will do. Yeah, of course.
So, the next kind of thing I wanted to ask was, these are going to be obviously more team builder centered, but to build a team, you need a draft. What would you say is your preferred style of drafting? Do you tend to draft more of a hyper offense, bulky offense? Do you like your hazard stacking? Do you like your stall teams? All-rounders? What do you like to go for?
So it's something that has like really evolved for me over like the last year, honestly, because I used to be a very, very big balance player, bordering on the line of defense, and I think that's kind of why I wasn't getting as many championships in the start of the generation. And I made kind of a pivot to more offense, and it's kind of just gone more and more in the offense direction since then. I haven't really backtracked too much. I used to be really obsessive about, I need to get like a really bulky steel, a really bulky water, a really bulky fairy. I need to get like a bulky dark that has access to knockoff and like slow pivots, whatever, and like a bulky normal, and I was always just like running, and I would sometimes run like rest talk strats and things like that. I still do sometimes, but like that was very much like when I was drafting, I always had very like clear like check boxes I had to fill. I kind of kept doing that and still do to some extent. I'm a very big, and I don't suggest this for everyone, it's just like a bad habit when I draft, because I'm like an anxious ball of anxiety, worried that I'm gonna like lose to something if I don't draft something. Where like I'll still be like, I need to get a fairy, I still need to get like a bulky water, whatever. But especially in the past 2 leagues I participated in, I've kind of come to realize that at least in this generation, focusing more on offensive cores than defensive cores in your building is just, in your drafting rather, is just so much better. Like I drafted like Skarmory and Landorus and Necrozma and CGT and didn't do great with it because I relied on them defensively quite a bit. Whereas in this other small league I'm participating in, and which is probably finished by the time this has gone up, CBDL, like my first 3 picks were Scissor, Gengar, Urshifu, Single Strike. You know what I mean? Like there's no defense there, but like they worked so well. Like I didn't need defense because as long as I never let my foot off the brake, I would have been fine. So my answer to that question is like it evolves. I think it's going in the direction of more and more hazard offense. But I still have a little bit of bad habit of saying, I still need to draft this, I still need to draft that. Like in CGT, like I drafted Aromatisse, and I was like, when the fuck am I bringing Aromatisse? I need a fairy,
You need a bulky fairy.
Yeah, exactly. These sort of arbitrary checkboxes, like Slacking, for example, won ICP, or was runner-up in ICP,
That's
rather.
Right, yeah.
And he didn't draft a steel type.
No.
Like, there's so many of these arbitrary requirements that I think people hold on to from like Gen 7 and Gen 6 metas that I think in a more fast-paced offensive meta like Gen 8 has become a lot less required. I think it's far more important to acquire other things, to be honest, like offensive psychics, offensive darks,
that's
fighting types,
that's kind of
volt switchers, like things like that I think are spikes. Like before it was just like get a rocker or two. Now it's like you want spikes on your team if you want it to be good. So it's like my perception is definitely hazard stacking offense strategy in this moment, but I'm always changing. It's never been super like definitive for me.
I think it's a very interesting point in terms of spikes, because within introduction with heavy duty boots, you think the strategy of spikes or even Tspikes, just hazard stacking in general, even sticky webs, they've all been nerfed. They've all been nerfed because of heavy duty boots in theory. However, I feel like Tspikes and spikes have taken the charge, taken the lead when it comes to hazards over rocks and even webs. Webs doesn't seem half as problematic this generation.
No, webs was a lot bigger in Gen 7.
Massively.
And the reason for that, I think, is pretty obvious when you step back and look at it. You say, well, if I'm building for this team that has, say, a Volcarona on it, for example, and I got like a Ferrothorn on my team and I need to bring hazards somehow, am I going to bring rocks or am I going to bring spikes, right? Even though Volcarona's there, I mean, Gen 7, you'd say rocks 100%.
Yeah.
Like you want a 50% against Volcarona. But in a world in this meta where mons like that are essentially 100% confirmed before the battle even starts, so you're running boots, it's like, what's the point? Like, just run spikes against the things that are like the bulky steals that you have to break that will take less from rocks anyway, or the the fat normals like PZ or whatever. Like if you get 25 PZ P2, if you get like 25% on them every turn, their defensive potential is neutered. And I think that's also why the offensive direction is taken over quite a bit, because there is the proliferation of spikes rather than something like webs has caused walls to be less efficient at doing what they do, unless they have like regen, for example. And that's what I've kind of seen. Like you're totally right, like boots would make you think just all hazards in general, but it's a question of what is commonly running boots and what isn't running boots.
Exactly. I mean, I also feel like spikes.
So, I mean, I look at matchups and I'm like, this will run boots, this will run boots. Now, what's the best hazards? 9 times out of 10, it's still spikes. So, I'm a big proponent of spikes, and then Tspikes right below it, because even if there's a grounded poison, sometimes there isn't. Tspikes are amazing, but even if there is a grounded poison, the odds that maybe it doesn't come, or the odds that it forces it out when it wants to be like preserved in the back, insane. Way that you can control the game,
especially when you have a hazard setter that can set Tspikes and pivot. I feel is important. So, for example, Excelgor and Dragouge are both excellent examples of that. Both of which you've used very recently. And one of the strategies I saw you utilize very well recently was, and I've not actually seen it used that well before, but in theory it's fantastic, which is a Venoshock team.
Yeah.
And you used it fantastically. Am I right in saying a Licky just dropped, didn't it? It just went down. Well, it didn't go down, but suddenly it's no longer... Licky's not that fat when you've got Specs Venoshock.
Yeah, I played a team without a grounded poison back-to-back in CBDL. There was a week 9 opponent and then a semifinals opponent after I got the bye. And they didn't have a grounded poison. And the first time I played them... I just brought Specs Venoshock on like 2 things, and it like clobbered. Like it like there was literally just like there was no swap into it, because there wasn't a swap into it. Like everything was poison. Like the walls were Licky, Clefairy, Guzzlord, Urshifu. Urshifu wasn't a wall, but like the other mons like Urshifu. I can't think of much else, but like there was a lot of like things that are like naturally bulky offensive mons, but. Yeah, Tspikes worked surprisingly well against that team. And the thing that I really like about hazards is actually not that. It's what happened the second time I played that team, when I had already revealed Tspikes were so good against them. I played my second game against them in such a way where I still brought Tspikes, but every time Tspikes went up, he was forced to go into his defogger and waste a ton of momentum by defogging, and I was able to like yawn and Corviknight, and I was able to like yawn in front of it and like knock off things on switch in and stuff like that just gave me a ton of offensive momentum in my court, because you've already seen how powerful these hazards are against you. So even if, for example, they have a grounded poison in the back, or they have a defogger in the back, or whatever. The fact that they're forced to bring that out when you're still plowing them with offense is crazy. Like, either you're plowing them with offense so well they're never going to bring it out and it's not going to matter, or they do bring it out and they give you the momentum to set that offense up in the first place. So that's why I've loved those strategies as well. It's not necessarily because most of the time they don't even go up. Like, in my CGT game against Vepsis, I got rocks and spikes up for maybe the first 6 turns of the game before he defogged them away, but I wasted my whole Scarm turn 1 for it. But him giving me that 1 turn to take 80% off of his Togekiss while he went for defog opened up like 9 holes that I could exploit. So it's less so about the hazards themselves and more so about the way that they force momentum in your field one way or another, right? Like, either they're clearing and they give you momentum, or they're not and they're giving you damage. It's great. So
what really impressed me with the game we were talking about a moment ago with the Excelgor was their defogger was the Corviknight, and you brought obviously Tspikes and you had Yawn, which was fantastic because it meant you yawn them as they're forced to defog. That means next turn you can always click Tspikes again because they are forced out, which means which at some point Corviknight has to come back in again. And
exactly.
You brought a really interesting item, which I've never actually seen before on Excelgor. Do you remember what it was?
It was Helmet. Yeah,
it was Rocky
That's not
Helmet
the first time
Excelgor.
I've done it either.
I thought that was genius. Rocky Helmet Excelgor, because the only move realistically, Corviknight's going to have offensively are U-turn and Brave Bird. Brave Bird, they're already taking recoil, so add the Rocky Helmet, and if you've yawned them, then they're going to sleep that turn at the end of that turn. And you've got your T-Spikes up. I thought that was really, really clever because it's a little bit of chip on that Corviknight. When you had a Urshifu single strike sat in the back, that little bit of chip is all you need to OHKO a Corviknight with CC or Wicked Blow.
For sure. Yeah, Excelgor was a mon in that league that I was very pleasantly surprised by because not only is it something that I think people misuse, like people just run like Spike Final Gambit, like that's it. I think that's a massive like misuse of that mon after trying it out. I brought it I thought I'd bring it maybe 3 or 4 games. I believe I brought it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the 10 games I played in that league. And most times I brought it, it was maybe I would still be like Jolly or like 16 EVs and like speed, Nordad speed, like maybe a base 120 mon, whatever. But then I was not putting the rest in attack. I was putting the rest in HP and defense. And like that was allowing it to get either 2 spikes up or is allowing it to recover on a turn that I'm forcing something out, which allows me to get more spikes off. So I find that like bulky spike stackers from my perspective are really nice, but not bulky like Skarmory bulky. Like I didn't like Skarmory as my spike stacker in CGT, but bulky in the sense that I have this, it's like speed and bulk. I don't care about attack and spikes. I care about like defense and speed for my spike stacker, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's a really
I liked it a lot.
No, I think Excelgor has, I think it's improved massively in Gen 8. You know, in terms of its hazard setting potential, and then into obviously throat spray is now a thing, and it's suddenly surprisingly offensive with base. Is it base 100 special attack? It's got
100. Yeah. And its physical attack isn't bad either. I think it's like 70, which U-turn's still gonna hit pretty hard. Stab U-turn.
Is workable. Yeah, absolutely. So if you were to look at a matchup, let's say you've drafted your Spikes, T-Spikes, your hazard offense team. What would and you looked at your matchup, what would be the team that you said 100% I'm bringing this? What do they not need to have on their draft? Or so for example, you've seen the grounded poison.
Bring spikes?
Yeah, for you to want to bring the hazard offense, is it they are a Stally team? Are they a team that lacks removal? A team that lacks a grounded poison?
That's a good question. I typically would run it. I mean, it really doesn't matter to me if I'm facing a stall team or a defense team or an offense team. I think it has its value no matter what. But I think the way I would run it would be differently depending on what I face. But like, I don't think there's any style of build that would like deter me or not deter me from bringing it.
Okay.
I mean, the games that I don't bring it aren't because I don't think they have bad matchup, but it's because I think that the mons that use them have bad matchup. Okay. Like in my CBDL finals game, which is going to go up in 2 days, but will probably be up by the time this is uploaded. I didn't bring any hazards at all, and it was largely because I knew that he was going to hazard stack me most likely, and I had to defog, and hazards hurt me than more hurt me than hurt him. And I also knew that he didn't have a ton of Spikes weak spawns, and I don't know, was a really offensive player that it wouldn't really matter too much because I think it was going to be a back and forth game. So I'd say like I'm less inclined to bring in the more offensive of a team I face, but I also sometimes feel like it's very hard to out offense me. I feel like when I think to like my losses, it's either games that I for some reason have made a mistake in my own prep and have decided to go more defensive than my own comfort zone, or it's games that I'm playing like Mount and CGT where he had a lot of bulky shit, and sometimes I like kind of struggle with that.
Yeah.
So, I don't think I struggle too much against offense in that level of strategy, but I don't know. It's a hard question because it's very matchup dependent. There's not really like one correct or wrong answer.
Absolutely.
But hopefully that's something.
No, definitely helpful. So you actually covered my next question with that, which was, what would deter you from bringing that kind of thing? But you've obviously answered that now. Now, something that I kind of want to go into that I think's interesting, because in my opinion, it's not controversial, but there's debate over it, and that is
I like controversialness.
That's speed
throw it at me.
Speed creeping.
Yes.
So a lot of people will go, for example, okay, what I'm going to do, because I don't know stuff off the top of my head. Let's say you've got let's have a look at some stuff. A Diggersby. Yeah, you've got a Diggersby, and they have a Zera Aura. And you're going Scarf Diggersby. Let's say you want to go Scarf Diggersby for this game. Let's have a look. So what speed does Scarf Diggersby hit? And then Zera
can actually outspeed Diggersby, but
okay. So let's say the fastest thing on your team was Gengar, which hits.
Sure.
What does Gengar hit base?
It's base 110. It's 350 in level 100. Trying to figure out what it is in level 50. I don't remember.
Yeah, I
still
have
my level 50.
All right, hits 178 timid.
Perfect.
So, for example, let's say you had the Zera Aura, and your opponent's fastest Pokemon was Gengar. Yeah. You could hypothetically just go with how much speed would you need if you were Jolly. You don't need any speed. You can go Jolly with 0 speed, and you outspeed timid Gengar by 1 point. So, where on earth? Oh, I'm on. Where have you gone?
I think I get your question.
There we go. Yeah. I'm probably phrasing it badly. So, for example, you can go with Diggersby. Do you just Scarf to outspeed a Zera Aura speed creeping a Gengar? Or do you go... Let's say Diggersby can outspeed Zera Aura. Bad example. But let's say it can. What's good? Let's say you've got an Arcanine. Yeah? Let's say you go and Scarf Arcanine. Would you Scarf your Arcanine to outspeed a Zera Aura speed creeping your fastest Pokemon, or would you just outspeed a max speed Zera Aura?
I would probably creep it to outspeed a Adamant Zera that is max speed. And the reason for that being that I find it, based on experience, unlikely that people are just like willing to just be jolly or timid when they have no reason to. Right? Unless they're really concerned about a Scarfer. So, like, in a situation like that, if my opponent wasn't fearing Scarf Arcanine, which I wouldn't if I was this opponent,
of course, yeah.
I would creep the Gengar with Zera. So I would assume my opponent to be adamant in this instance, because it's like you're not going to run max speed in that instance, and if you are, your base power damage is going to be a lot lower. So. True. I would creep it creeping the Gengar. One thing I do is I creep like maybe 32 beyond just in case I'm missing something, or just because like sense. In case he does like 16 beyond, you know what I mean? Like I might have to do an increase on that, and then there might be other field effects that, you know, make that creep need to be a little bit higher, like, you know, the tailwind or webs or whatever. But then I would say at the same time, it depends on like how intense of a game it is.
Yeah.
Like if it's a game that's like a playoffs game, then I'll probably do that. But if it's a game that's like, I don't know my opponent, I've never seen this person play before, don't know how good they are, then I'll probably creep the max speed Zera.
Yeah.
But in a world in which I know my opponent and like know that they know how to team build well, then I will probably creep the Zera creeping. Yeah. The second thing I always make sure to do when I'm ever caught in those instances, and this is only something I do when I make balance builds and not offense builds, but if it is a balance build in this instance, is I will make sure my wall beats like a jolly or timid version of the mon that my Scarfer doesn't outspeed if it is timid or jolly. So I have that fail safe. Like that's a huge thing for me in draft leagues. Like I don't usually mention it in a lot of my team builders, but I usually like start building with like 3 or 4 mons, and then I kind of round it out. But as I'm rounding it out, I'm thinking in the back of my mind about fail saves. Like if this Scarfer doesn't work at revenging this, then what's my secondary option here? If this mon doesn't successfully break this, then what's my secondary option to do so? Because I find a lot of people come into draft leagues with plans, and when those plans don't work, they just lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I always try and think about having some kind of backup, and if it's a backup to a Scarfer, oftentimes it would be, you know, a defensive option. So for example, if I brought this Scarf Arcanine in this instance, and he ended up bringing Timid Zera, or Jolly Zera, then maybe I would have a defensive, I don't know, Registeel in the back that I've EV'd to make sure to live like 3 Jolly, or not Jolly, Jolly close combats. And if it's Adamant, then I don't live 3. But if it's Jolly, then I do.
Yeah. That's fair.
And then part of the other gameplay is scouting what that is, right? Knowing in the middle of the game that I have to say, okay, is this Adamant, is this Jolly? So I can figure out if my Scarfer outspeeds it or not.
So. For those new to it, how would you find that out? Would you do that via damage calculators? You'd figure out exactly if they're Jolly or Adamant.
Yeah, it would either be like through damage calculators, or for some mons I feel like I've seen them enough to know, like just off of looking at the health bar. But generally speaking, yeah, I would calc it and say, okay, this has to be Adamant, or it's more likely that this is Adamant than Jolly. And with that information, then I can make the judgment call of like whether or not my Scarfmon outspeeds. Like actually, hilariously that you brought up this example, I played Q in UPBA like week 7 game or something like this, like maybe a long time ago now, even though it feels really soon. And I brought Scarf Diggersby to outspeed Zera because I thought that because my fastest mon was like Starmie, and like I was like, yeah, he's gonna bring Adamant against me.
Yeah.
So I brought Scarf Diggersby because I was like, I won't outspeed if he's Jolly, but if he's Adamant, then I do. But before I sent Diggersby out to revenge, I swapped like Wheezing, I think, into Zera and calced it and made sure it was Adamant, and lo and behold it was. So then I knew for the rest of the game that Scarf Diggersby would work. But if it didn't work, then my Wheezing just would have walled the Zera, so I would have been fine either way.
No, that's really interesting. I think it's a very interesting topic of speed creeping, because you see people speed creeping a speed creep and of another speed creep, and I think it's a rabbit hole, and I think sometimes you just gotta accept that, you know what, I might lose about 60 EVs because I did an aggressive speed creep, but what are those 60 EVs gonna get me?
100%, and this is a conversation I've had with Matt before too, is like there's some people who just speed creep for the sake of speed creeping, so they could just have like 80 extra HP EVs, but it's like, what are those 80 HP EVs for? Like if you can tell me what they're for and they're like, oh, it's taken for 1 hit from this mon, then fine, sure. But if it's like just to have them, is it worth the risk? I don't know. You know.
Yes, I feel like when you're deciding on your win con, I think you take no risk personally. I think you just say, worst case scenario, they have no reason to bring a max speed. You know, let's say you've got a what's the base? Let's say Weavile. Let's say you're Weavile and they're Gengar. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're predicting them to outspeed your base 100 Mew. Yeah. Do you go? I don't see any reason why you'd ever speed creep Weavile to be outspeeding their Gengar, outspeeding your Mew. I don't see why you'd ever take that risk whatsoever, because something like a Weavile, it's so weak anyway, it's so frail. Why?
Yep.
What's the point? Just
why bother?
Go for that speed.
And the thing about that Gengar Mew distinction is, for Gengar to creep Mew, it doesn't get the luxury to run Modest, so it's much less enticing to do that super big creep for my opponent, right? Whereas in the case of Zeraora outspeeding Gengar, Zeraora gets the luxury of being rewarded by being so far ahead of speed that it can run that adamant or modest nature, and that's what I find is so enticing. So in matchup, when I see that level of enticedness is there for my opponent to run adamant or modest, I'm more inclined to believe that they'll do so. But if like it's just like, oh, maybe maybe this Keldeo will creep the Neolego, I'm like, you're so close. That's so close and like stats, why is that worth risking?
Yeah, I agree.
I've seen it.
You've seen people lose because of it
before in draft leagues, where someone's like, I don't understand why you didn't creep like your Keldeo to outspeed my Neolego because it's faster, and don't you want to creep it? And they didn't, because it's like 16 EVs, and then they end up like winning a speed tie because their opponent fucked up. So it's like in cases, it depends on the case.
Yes, if it's your win con, I don't think you take chances personally.
No.
I think when it comes to your win con, you've got to be safe, and you just got to make sure to play for that end game with what you want for them, and you make sure you've got yourself a guarantee in the back that you will outspeed everything. Not, oh, what if they're jolly? You don't want to take that risk out personally, because my heart couldn't take it personally.
Yeah, it's situational. Like I'll find myself on one side of the aisle or another, but I'm never taking unnecessary risks. Like if you're gonna do the creep that way, there's got to be a reason for it. Why you need the extra EVs?
Absolutely. Are there any Pokemon that you'd probably class as your signature? That's if you got the chance to draft it, you'd always draft it, or that people they know you for.
So the mon that people know me for that I always draft when I get the opportunity. Although that's not true. I don't always draft it when I get the opportunity. I've only used it like 5 or 6 times in my entire draft league career. But it's Guzzlord. Guzzlord is like my go-to. Like if I don't have a dark type, that's the one. Like I fucking love that mon. And it's a mon that I know that I can use like a 10-pointer, and no one else can use it like a 10-pointer.
Yes. So
it's been really good for me. I think it's a mon that, and I don't want to sound like I'm gloating, I've brought it now. I think I have my stats. I have a doc with stats with it. I brought it to, I think, 20-something games in my career, and I've only lost one of those 20-something games with it. That's it was against Galadite, and motherfucker hacksed me, so I don't even count that.
No, don't count. That doesn't count.
No. So, and then I beat him later in the season. Anyway, so who cares? But yeah, I would say that is a signature one. It's very funny because it's not like a mon that like is very like fitted within my playstyle. It's just a mon I really enjoy using. I'd say if there's a mon that is a little bit more my playstyle that has become signature, it has become the combination of Rotom Heat and Diggersby, which I've used in 2 different Wi-Fi leagues now. And I think that they fill a very reliable speed tier for me in any draft. And they also fill very reliable typing holes for me in like every draft. Like I'm always looking for a higher tier ground, always looking for a normal type for like a possible spec shear, and it's great not to worry about that. Always looking for a U-turner, always looking for a pivoter. Rotom's typing is really great. And those are 2 that always fit in any kind of build for me, right? If I run a balance build, I'm always able to run like some kind of bulky U-turn Diggersby set with a bulky Rotom set, or I can run an offensive Scarf Diggersby with like an offensive Nasty Plot Rotom, right? So I'd say those two are probably two that I've now used twice. They're both times I've used them as a duo, I've won the Wi-Fi League. So
oh really?
That's pretty cool.
That's like kind of like a solid core for yourself. So if you can always get them.
Yeah, it's been pretty reliable, I'd say.
If you
I mean, it's also just like difficult to prep for, right? Like what is coming in on Diggersby, like bulky waters, bulky grasses, what's Rotom Heat, anti all that.
Even bulky grasses don't want to come in on Diggersby because huge power U-turn.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, it depends. Depends on the grass. It's like Amoonguss will come in on Diggersby, but
it's true. Yeah, true. But then you just get into your Rotom and you can
Volt Switch or blow it back.
Overheat,
it's awesome. Yeah, I haven't even thought about those two as like something that's been core, but I was looking at my draft NL stats, and those were the two that I've drafted most often on the website so far. Yeah.
So you hear that, folks? If you draft those two, you are guaranteed to win your draft league.
You are 100% guaranteed. And again, because people always think about cores from their top tiers, right? They're always like, oh, like I drafted, Dragapult. Now I need to make something that pairs amazingly with Dragapult. You really don't.
No.
Like a lot of these high tier mons, like for example, the 2 leagues that I've won with this duo, I've had a Mew and I've had an Urshifu. Those are 2 mons that are very good standalone mons that really you don't need to build around as a core. You can let the other mons do that work for you as a core, and then you just have that mon as a very big threat that your opponent has to fear.
Yeah.
So my perspective has always been like, I think people spend a little bit less time focusing on some of their mid-tier coring decisions. Yeah. And that's something that I feel like I've now needed to look towards a little bit more, and kind of why I feel like I might have failed a little bit in CGT, because I focused a lot of my cores at the top level of my draft and then rounded the rest out with defense. When in reality, I could have focused the cores near the middle, just gotten really threatening top tiers and gotten really threatening low tiers and it'd been fine. So I'd say that is like kind of another thing that sometimes I've made a little self-revelation about in terms of how I think about mons or just intuitively draft.
I feel like you keep selling yourself short. You keep saying that you failed in the CGT. You got more than a lot of people would get. A lot of people would happily have been in your shoes for that. What was it, 4 and 5 you went in
That's
the end?
True. I went for 4 and 5. It's the worst I've ever done in a Wi-Fi league, and I had a lot of stuff going on. I think the reason I say that I did poorly in it is because it's not one of those situations where like I feel like I like the games that I lost, I rightfully 100% should have lost, but there are also games where I didn't feel like I was doing what I'm best at doing. Like for example, like one example is like Necrozma, when we talk about sometimes me making a mistake and going too defensive in my building, which is outside of my comfort zone. Every time I brought Necrozma offensively in CGT, I won. Every time I brought Necrozma defensively in CGT, I lost. Like, that pattern is not a coincidence, you know what I mean? So I look back at myself and say, had I just stuck with my comfort zone in this battle or in this battle, I'd be 6-3, I'd be 7-2 going into playoffs. And that's not me just uniquely trying to like excuse myself. That's something that a lot of people in CGT face, that we were talking about before we started the recording, about people who felt kind of pressured to step outside their comfort zone in a certain matchup and regretted it later. Like, that's a thing that a lot of people go through. But of course, now me reflecting, saying, oh, and I just like won a single game more, and I had, I think, 3 1-0 losses through the course of that season, it would have been better. But alas,
Live and learn.
But it's a huge learning experience, because it told me what I think my best play style is, because I didn't have these revelations about how I play until very recently.
Absolutely. So. No, very good points in terms of stick to your not so much always stick to your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to go outside of your comfort zone, but know your own strengths, and if you can build to it, probably best to.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's nothing wrong with trying something different every now and then either.
Yeah, for sure.
I've got a bit of a... So there's something... I said to you that I've got a curveball. I told you this beforehand. I've got one question beforehand before I throw you this curveball. Because, I said there was more things we want to go into, but I'm aware that you have to head off soon.
I have like half an hour, so it's whatever you want.
Well, we'll see how we're doing after the curveball. Because I would like to go over some of the teams that you sent me. But just quick question before the curveball. What do you consider? So I'm going to give you 3 options here, and I want you to rank them worst to best, or what's worst to most, least important to most important. So what do you think is the most important aspect when it comes to being successful in draft? Your team building skills, your battling skills, or luck?
Battling skills, 100%. Yeah. Because I think luck is one. Like, yes, everyone experiences luck. I hate the people who are like, of course I get the 10%. Of course, it's got to be me. I'm the unluckiest player of all time. It's like not how luck usually works. Like, it is balanced. You just notice the stuff that goes against you more than you notice stuff that goes for you.
100%.
And I've been angry at luck. I've been lucked out of a few games.
Every right to be as well.
That's happened. You have a right to be angry. You lost a game that is frustrating, but it does balance out to some extent. You just don't notice it.
Yeah.
And then I would say team building and battling is very close.
Yes.
But I guess I would say that I don't think you can win a battle by playing poorly.
Yes.
And
but you can win
as much
with a bad team.
You can win with a bad team. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, it's tough because, again, it's situational. But I don't know. It's hard to say, though, because it's like the leagues I've been successful in are the leagues that I have good drafts and builds in. So it's probably back and forth. But, I mean, to me, it's like, I just think from a conceptual perspective, if you have a terrible team, you can find a win con within that sometimes. Absolutely. Even if it's through luck, like you said. And that's awareness in a battle. But if you come in with a good team and sack your win con turn 2, like what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, those, I don't know. It's comparing those two is kind of
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense. I do think you've got a better chance of winning if you're a better player. Rather than having a good team, like you said, some not a bad player, but a less good player can certainly struggle more. They're less likely to win with a good team than a better player with a bad team. I feel.
And I say that, but at the same time, I consider myself a better builder than a better player. I used to consider myself the opposite, but I think in the midst of Wi-Fi, sometimes I'll forget about something or forget about a game plan or shift my thoughts a little bit too much. Like, I'm sometimes at fault with that. But when I'm building a team that's in my comfort zone, I never feel like I'm going to lose. Like, it's very rare that, I build a team that I'm extremely comfortable with and then I just get, completely wiped.
Yes.
Like, it's a lot of it is confidence. Like, if confidence was there, that's thinking. I get my confidence from good team builds, not from battles.
Confidence is a good thing to put in there. Actually, it's a good thing that might actually. I'm going to put it in because I think confidence is very important. And I think sometimes the stage or the gravity of the game can play a big part. I think a big issue a lot of people have. Me personally, I have always made playoffs. I've never not made playoffs in a league. But I've never won a league, and I think a combination of that is I think I'm a good team builder, which is what I think gets me to playoffs. But I don't think I'm a good enough battler to hang with the big dogs. But there'll be times when I might beat them in the regular season. But then it comes to playoffs, and I think I don't have the confidence. I think I suddenly start to panic. So, no, I think confidence is a good thing to put on there, and I'm definitely adding it. And
confidence is massive. That's the other thing about CGTs. You're going up against someone who you should be terrified of every single week.
Every single week,
So there were moments that I was mortified. I was like, oh, fuck.
I've got to play this person, And then it's...
and I had to get over myself and be like, I can do it.
I imagine it was a very emotional toll as well that season, because not only, when you're in a season, let's say just a regular season, you've got 1 or 2 big names in there, for example, that are some of the best in the community. And let's say you've got them, say week 2 and then 1 week 7. You've got a nice gap in between. Yeah? Whereas CGT, it was back to back to back.
No stop.
No stop. You must have been absolutely shattered.
Drained. Poor Galadite had Vepsis, Shuckle King, Madoche back to back to back. So...
And correct me if I'm wrong.
Did I say Mount? I meant Shuckle King, Vepsis, Madoche.
Yes. Yeah, you said that. I think you said that, yeah. Okay. But Galadite is someone who, from my experience watching him, and I think I've watched pretty much all of his draft videos, I don't think I've ever seen him not make playoffs. And, he didn't make it, and that goes
Same
to
for
show
me.
what kind of league it was.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It was a tough one, and I don't think anybody who was in that league should be disheartened about not making playoffs at all.
No, I'm over it. I was very sad for like a day, and then I was like, I don't have to play anymore. I'm tired.
Yeah, but it was nice to have a bit of a rest as well. So, 1 second, I'm just going to send you this little...
Yeah, show me this curveball. I'm excited for
Yes.
it.
Oh, good lord. All right, perfect. Right. So for this curveball, what I'm going to do is, obviously, depending on, we haven't got too much longer left, but we're going to build a team together.
Oh, okay.
So it's more, you're going to build
exciting.
a team, and I'm going to build it on Showdown. So I'm going to send you a matchup. I've gone onto the Draft League website, and I've gone through a random active league and picked out two teams. And I'm going to send it to you, and I want you to tell me, first of all, you're going to be the team on the left. So obviously I'm going to pop it on the screen post-edit.
I hope it's not awful, and I hope I'm not going to like call this draft awful and offend someone.
So you are going to be the Atlanta Victinis, which I'm sure you know is JV. I'm not sure who the coach of the
Where
LA
are your
Shamans
spikes?
is. He's got Heracross.
No, it's a horrible spiker.
I know this league has, I think it's pretty much wrapped up. So, I know,
what league is this?
1 second. JV literally uploaded the semi-final, I think yesterday. So let me just go to his thing. It's the IBA.
The what?
The IBA.
Oh, the IBA.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Sure.
Yes, so that is the matchup. And you are, let's say you have drafted JV's team, you are the Atlanta Victinis against the LA Shamans. Is the, you've got to build, this is your next week. What is the first thing you'd look at? What's the first thing you notice that jumps out at you?
I look to see certain holes that the team has. So things that are like staple things that a draft would want that are missing. So immediate thing that sticks out to me on this LA Shamans team, no fairy type, right? So I would love for Dragapult to go crazy here because Dragapult's nutty and the Dragon Resist is Scissor. So automatically that's catching my eye as something that I would like to consider. I would just have to get over the defensive hurdle of Scissor plus P2. But that's not that big of an issue to me.
Okay, so we know that Dragapult's going to be on the team. That's where you'd start. Looking at it, what speed would you go with Dragapult for this matchup? Because the first thing I noticed when I saw this team, because this is... sorry, I should have said...
Very slow.
This is in order of speed, this team. So Articuno Gala is their fastest Pokemon, which I believe is 95.
Yeah, I mean, my perception is my opponent has to do one of two things, which is either run Trick Room against me or run a Scarfer. But the Scarfers that they could run, I mean, like Lando, Articuno, like I'm not going to be able to outspeed those anyway. So I would creep probably... I'd probably just creep max speed Articuno. I don't see a reason why I'd go beyond that.
Then, do you?
Yeah.
You'd probably just go Adamant or Modest.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, given that there's a Scissor on the team, it might allow me to invest a little bit in special attack for something like Flamethrower or defense for something like a Bullet Punch. Yeah. So I think looking at this, I would probably think about going max attack Adamant because Dragon Darts.
Yeah.
We're not Adamant, but let me see. Now I gotta look at the thing. I gotta look at the thing myself.
I can't.
No, you're good. Whatever. I think max speed Articuno hits 161, so I don't have to run at any speed at all. So I'd probably put the minus in like Spadef or something like that.
Yes, yeah, so you take the bullet
actually no, I'd put it in special attack because Flamethrower is still gonna nuke the Scissor. So I'd still make it Adamant. And I'd probably just go basically max attack, and then I'd probably calc a Scissor. I don't know if we have time for this, but I'd probably calc a Scissor and look and see, like, okay, even though I minus attack, how much is Flamethrower doing with a non-boosting item? Nothing like that.
Yeah.
Right now, if I look at a specially defensive set, which I don't think it'll be, but if it is, Flamethrower is doing 57 to 67, largely fine by me. Let me see if it's max HP. 81 to 96. So I'd probably invest enough special attacks so that a Flamethrower, even though I'm modest, will kill after one round of rocks. So I would probably run. I gotta do level 50.
So you're going. Okay, so you're going.
I would want to hit 88 min. I would go Adamant max attack. I would run 36 special attack EVs and special attack because that'll make sure that Flamethrower KOs a max HP Scissor after rocks. And then I'd throw the rest in HP. I could play around with HP and defense, which I do sometimes to like make myself take like 3% less from a bullet punch, but I'm gonna spare you from that.
Off the top of your head, that's pretty much that's the first thing that comes to your mind. You know that you can spam Dragon Dance darts. You know you got Flamethrower. You know you don't need any speed. So that's already like a mon that you kind of expect to possibly be your win con here, right?
Yes, 100%. So I would definitely consider running Dragon Darts. And I'll make these sets before I'll make this like first initial set. This is how I build. Like I know you're asking about like front offices and stuff before this. Like usually how I think about it is like my front office will like bring me a few singular set ideas, and then I'll start with that set and then continue a build from there after I've made that set.
Sometimes I think your brain just goes, well, let me just have a quick look at a matchup, and that's it. Your brain already knows exactly what it wants to do. It's just ironing out the details and.
Exactly. So I'd say darts, flamethrower, U-turn are very obvious for me. Last move could be something like Dragon Dance. It could be something like Sucker Punch if I'm afraid of like a Trick or Reuniclus.
Yeah.
It could be something like
or even Phantom Force, maybe.
Maybe not Phantom Force, because I think I would hold something like a Dragon Fang in this matchup just to maximize Dragon Dart's damage, since he's just so Dragon weak.
Yeah, that's really good shout there.
Yeah, the last one could be Phantom Force. That's also possible.
Or even sub. You can probably go sub.
I could probably go sub.
Or Dragon Dance, like you said. Dragon Dance also.
Dragon Dance, like I said. It's a lot of different options. I'll spare you it would depend on the end. Maybe I'll go back to it.
I was gonna say,
it would definitely be something like that.
Yeah.
I go back to it. I don't make that decision now. I wait to see what I'm weakest against.
Okay.
So 2 things that would come in against this Polt. P2 from the onset. Probably not Scissor. Unless it's Akka, in which case I would U-turn a little bit to just make sure it's in range despite the Akka. And Jellicent once he knows what the set is. So I would then start to look and see, okay, since I am running U-turn, what's a secondary offensive mon that is going to capitalize on the Jellicent and going to capitalize on the P2. And I think that's Heracross looking at this matchup. So
yeah, it is.
You know, I'm looking at just like Guts, Heracross, and I don't know whether I run Flame Orb or I don't know if I run the Flame Orb set or if I just run Guts with like a Life Orb and maybe he'll burn me with Jellicent himself. But I would probably run something like Facade, Close Combat, Sword Stance knockoff or something like that.
Yeah, I suppose you don't need to bug move, do you? Because knockoff hits them.
Yeah, I mean, knockoff is good for Jellicent, but I would need the SD just to make sure that even if it's Cold Burr, I'm doing a shit ton of damage to it. It's good for P2, Reuniclus, but like largely I want to make sure I have Facade for the Lando and Weezing that could come in. So I like that as an offensive core, that Dragapult Heracross there. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that seems solid to me.
And you know, what would I creep? I'd probably creep. God, there's not much to creep.
What's Duraludon's speed?
85, but I don't give a shit.
The same,
Duraludon sucks. I also don't think Duraludon comes this game, to be honest. Like, it doesn't do anything to Metagross, doesn't do anything to Milotic.
No.
Can barely touch Moltres.
Yeah.
Unless it's like Specs.
Yeah, it's outsped by some threats as well. Crocodile, VQ, obviously Dragapult, and even Tauros threatens it with close combat.
I would probably still run enough speed for not a max speed, but like it's some kind of Landorus set. Like
Landorus.
I might like predict like maybe Landorus is gonna like try and creep a. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like I might just run none. I don't know. I would run Adamant though. I think that's the big thing. And maybe I'd creep like max speed Incineroar if he's like Flame Charge or max speed Scissor or something. But truthfully, there's a big speed gap there that I can take advantage of.
Yeah, so let's say Scissor, which is base 65. So
yeah, we'll just go with that.
Yeah, which hits 117. So for Heracross, you really don't need much at all, do you? So,
no,
you just need to get.
And I'd rather preserve the HP to take things like Bullet Punch, or if Trick Room is being run against me, I want to make sure I have as much bulk as possible to take one hit from Conk or take one hit from something else.
Yeah, so you got quite a bulky Heracross there. Now I imagine because if you were to go with the
still Guts Flame Orb, but
are you going Flame Orb then or Life Orb?
I would definitely go Flame Orb. I think.
Flame Orb,
because it's
just get that immediate power.
Yeah.
Swords Dance Flame Orb.
So
there's nothing to shout. Nothing to. Nothing to.
Yeah. So I've just talked about the fact that Weezing and Lando can come in on Hera, the fact that P2 and Jellicent could come in on Pult. I would probably now look for a rocker of some sort that would pressure those mons on top of the pivoting from Pult. And then I would also look for a mon that comes in on the things that swap in on Heracross, being the Weezing and the Landorus. Because obviously Heracross can't pivot out on those. So for the Weezing and the Landorus, it would probably be my Lotic, as much as I fucking despise that thing. And for the rocks, it looks to me like Metagross is a really solid shout here. Largely because I think it's unfaced better than Neolego, given Scissor exists and P2 exists and Rhianoclus exists. And
about a Crocodile
Honk
as your rocker.
Crocodile exists too, but Lando I would kind of prefer Crocodile to be in a more offensive role, to be honest.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
Potentially, I'm actually considering down the line running some kind of AV Crocodile to handle like a or Chopple is another option to handle a Trick Room Rhianoclus or Conk under Trick Room or something like that.
Yeah,
because those look really difficult for me right now. Trick Room looks like the biggest thing against me for this team.
Yeah.
So I would say my next three would probably be bulky Milotic with something like Toxic, Scald, Haze, Recover, maybe swap Scald for Flip Turn. I'm not sure. But I would probably need Haze, and I would probably need Toxic.
Yeah.
Item could be either Flame Orb or Lefties. I'd have to run the calcs. Probably gonna get knocked anyway.
Yeah.
Could be Helmet as well.
Yeah, I'll chuck Lefties on for now. Oh, it could be Helmet, yeah. I'll chuck Lefties on for now, but it could be, like I said, it could be anything. I think I'd
could be anything.
Something like, again, it depends on the calcs, because it depends on that Conkelder, really, doesn't it? Because Flame Orb will be taking the residual chip, but it depends if that residual chip is worth it for the defense boost in this scenario.
Yeah. And then for the Metagross, I'd probably think about running like Rocks.
So that's just
Scissor's really annoying. Honestly, I might run something along the lines of Rocks, Iron Defense Body Press in this matchup with like Toxic. Just because that P2 and that Scissor look real annoying. That might be a little bit too niche though. It would either be that or just like Meteor Mash, Ice Punch, Bullet Punch, and I just like sort of. That's pretty terrible too. Yeah, I'm liking the Body Press set the more I'm looking at it.
Looks alright, because you're Toxic,
kind of goofy, but
yeah. Would you go lefties?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if it's sub Jellicent, I could be in trouble. But if it is, I could run like Body Press Metagross. It doesn't even need to be actually Iron Defense. It could just be Body Press, Toxic, Stealth Rock, Ice Punch, or Meteor Mash. One of the two. Probably Meteor Mash. Yeah.
Yeah,
I do that. Meteor Mash.
Okay.
Meteor Mash, Body Press, Toxic, Rocks, probably with lefties, or Shuka, one of the two there. And probably not much speed, probably just like 16 speed EVs for some kind of conch or some kind of something else.
16 speed EVs, yeah.
But then probably something like max HP, max defense, I'd say looks pretty solid this game. Most of this team is very physical with the exception of the Reuniclus, which is why I would say for that last slot, I would think about the Crocodile Lure with Choppel to, you know, deal with Reuniclus Focus Blast and kill back with like a knockoff or a Lariat. I'd probably run Lariat in case of Acid Armor Reuniclus.
Yeah, that's fair.
And for Conch, I can probably just EQ it.
Yeah.
So it'd probably be Choppel. It'd probably be Choppel with like Earthquake, Lariat. Maybe it would be Lariat. Maybe it would be Earthquake, Knock.
You could probably afford to go both, really. I think dual stabs.
You might, yeah.
Double dark.
Dual stabs
EQ
with
and
Lariat and Taunt, yeah.
Could be interesting. Or even a Lash Out. You know, for the incoming, if Lando wants to come and give you the drop.
Maybe.
Lash Out could be interesting.
I don't know. I think I'd go Lariat before I went Lash Out, but that's pretty cool tech.
That's fair. That's fair.
And then after that, I would probably go Togekiss in the last slot.
You go Togekiss,
as a flincher, as another bulky mon that can kind of stall out the Trick Room turns from Conch and Reuniclus. I would probably also run. I would probably run Air/Roost. Yeah, I mean the flying resist is Electivire. Yikes. So like, I would actually probably do Air/Roost, Nasty Plot, but it would still be bulky. Nasty Plot and Encore.
Encore, that's good.
That seems like an interesting set for me because there's a lot of mons here that rely on either recovering up or rely on, you know, setting Trick Room. I could see like sub Jellicent in this matchup if he really expects a lot of the Toxics that I'm bringing. So Encore is another nice option for me to just like check back against any potential niche strategies my opponent has. I'd say that's what I bring. That's what I go for.
Boots. Would you go Boots?
What are the rockers? Lando and Duraludon? Yeah, I'd go Boots here. Just in case.
Just in case.
Because there's nothing better.
Yeah.
If I had to choose anything else, probably Shardy maybe for Edge Lando, but that just seems bad. So yeah.
No, I like that. So would go more Fizdef or special defense in this?
Fizdef 100%. I would go Fizdef, but I would have enough investment to not be too KO'd by Reuniclus Life Orb Psychic, and that might be actually me completely overestimating how good this mon is. So give me a second and I will run that calc.
That's how I've got that.
Togekiss. Wow. Okay, Jesus. Psychic.
Would it be Psychic or Psyshock, do you think, Reuniclus?
Not too sure. Okay, I would probably do... I mean, it could be either.
If you can do it for both.
So I would need...
Both, yeah.
Yeah, I'd calc for both. So I would need 248 HP, 172 Spadef for taking that Psychic from Modest Life Orb Reuniclus. And I would need... Let me see. What did I say? 248
for HP.
248, 172.
It's level 50.
Then I go.
So you want 244, I imagine, for HP.
Yeah.
Leaves you 92 after the 172. Is the 172 in Spadef or defense?
Spadef.
Spadef. So 172 in Spadef. And then...
hold. Give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
This is like actually kind of neat. Okay, why am I looking at Arena Clips, not Togekiss right now? Okay, hold on. Give me a second. You might need a cut. You might need a cut for like a minute. Because now I want to know this. Okay,
No,
so I would go 244. No. It's going to take so long. Okay, 172, and then there's 92 in defense. How much does that take from a Psyshock? A lot. If I go less in there, more in that. Alright, so I'm never going to perfectly handle both, but it is a question of just like minimizing odds. So if I like, if I'm rolling out with like more math. If I'm rolling out with like 148 SPDEF, right, and 244 defense, I'm taking Psychic. I'm not getting 2-KO'd by Psychic 96% of the time.
Yeah.
And then if I'm going 116 bold in defense, then I'm always living that Psyshock. So I could actually go... No, yeah, 116 in defense, I'm always taking the Psyshock.
What's your
if I'm bold in that 116. However, I shouldn't be bold because the highest stat is SPDEF. So I would actually go...
Calm?
I would actually go Calm with 36 in SPDEF. And 228 in FizzDef. And actually, that makes me a very much better at taking Psych. Wait, no, that's not true. Hold on. That puts me in a situation where I can do a little bit less in defense, do a little bit more in SPDEF. And that lets me do 220 and 44. So I would go 220 and 44.
220, 44.
Just for reference, this is what I would do. Sorry, that took a very long, unnecessary time, and you should probably speed that up or something. But the reason that's really important to me is the exact same thing I told you about the Zera speed creeping stuff, because it's like, you want to make sure that you can, with your bulky mon, take on a physical version or a special version. Same deal with Psychic and Psyshock. I want to EV my Togekiss in a way where I'm chewing a Psychic and I'm chewing a Psyshock, regardless of which comes, because I'm not one to make predictions about which is coming. My opponent could see Neolego and say Psyshock's way better, but could see Tangela and say Psychic's way better. You have no idea. So I just want to make sure I'm prepared for both. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
No, this has kind of been. This is exactly what I wanted. I wanted these curveballs to just be a bit of a shit, and then it's like.
And is that a team of 6? I think that's it, right?
Yeah. So let me quickly grab it.
Now you're going to compare it to JV's, and it's going to be.
Oh, I don't know if JV actually
infinitely
played them.
worse than one JV.
I don't actually know if JV played them. I didn't check. I didn't think it was something. I thought I'd just write. You know what? I'm going to. We're just going to see what we come up with. I'll have to ask him. I'll check back on his run and, you know. But yeah, I've seen a Pokebase of the team that we've gone through.
Generally speaking.
Crook or Milotic, but we got the general gist.
Yeah, it's a general team. It would be as complicated as the Togekiss one, so I'm not one for simple EVs, so that's why I don't want to keep you on the line about that.
No, I think it's important. I think it's very interesting. I love the kind of... Is it worth maximizing every EV, or do you just want to do what you need it to do?
Yeah, I think it's worth maximizing all EVs, because it's like, why not? You know what I mean? It's like, if you have a situation where you are always living a Psychic from Alakazam, regardless of whether you have 252 SPDEF or 128 SPDEF, you may as well reallocate that extra SPDEF into something else that gets you something else more valuable.
No.
So,
good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just know that some people, when it comes to, for example, they need a... let's say this is my SPDEF wall, so I'm going to go Calm, even though they should probably go Bold. They'll still just go Calm because it gives them what they need.
That makes sense, you know, and again, it depends. But in this instance, for me, like, this Togekiss is very particularly built for Reuniclus under Trick Room. You know what I mean? So it's like, in that situation, which it's so hyper-focused, to me it makes a lot of sense to go the very meticulous route. But if you're just like, my opponent has 5 special attackers and my special wall beats most of them, then yeah, you'll probably just want to go Max Spadaf. Yeah. And I've been in both camps, and I build with both camps. Like, I think some of the teams I sent you will probably have extremely complicated EVs, and some of them will be just 252, 252. It's entirely matchup dependent.
Absolutely. Well, I know, looking at the time, I know that you need to get off.
Yeah, I'd say I have about 10 minutes if you want to talk like about one more
yes,
team
let's
or
do
something.
it. Let's do it, because I really did want to go into them. Now let me just... Right, okay, so I'm going to go with this one. It is the PTL Week 12 versus Raven, because I'll tell you why. Okay. Because I think that I've seen people really struggle against Stall, and I've never had problems with Stall, because I always feel like I feel like I know how to beat Stall, but it's definitely something I've seen people struggle with, and I'd really like to see your take on how you do it, and what you feel like the best way to do it. So me just having a quick look at it, you've got the obvious, Taunt is a fantastic way to break Stall.
Let me send you the 2 teams, my team and my opponent's team. This was very early in the generation. So there's this, and then there's this. So this guy has been winning throughout. This is week 12. This guy had been like winning like 6-0 in like a bunch of different games, because he just sits there, and I'm like,
they run out of time.
Not today, not me. I refuse.
Quagsar, Rotom. Is that Rotom Ghost?
Yeah.
Delmise, Wobbuffet, Mantine, Typenol, Dusclops, and so they've got triple Ghost. That's interesting. No, sorry, quadruple Ghost. They got 4 Ghost types. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell they're, but it was working like really well.
Yeah,
but I still brought my Gothstone nonetheless.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah, that's a fat team. That
I Mimikyu. Yeah.
But what would say for a Stall team? They're very lackluster on recovery, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a little bit more niche. It's a little bit niche here. Maybe
support on a Stall.
I have a better one actually for Stall. Come to think of it, if you want me to do that, this one's a little bit more fun. That is a little bit less obvious. It's like, bring Taunt. Taunt is good. Like, this one is actually pretty neat.
It's a very underrated, move.
This is the wrong one. Taunt is like the best move in the game, I think. All right, let's do this, and then I'll send you what the matchup is in a second. This was a semi-Ubers game.
I'm gonna open that.
But let me see. Let me see.
Right,
so I got that. And then
all right, this team is fun.
Here. Yeah, I think that one's gonna be a little bit more fun to go through.
Yeah.
And then I just gotta get their team. Active leagues, CLTQ, bloppity boppity, history, ranking. How about that? Show past seasons ranking. You. Okay. So this is their team. It may look like they don't have Ubers in the same way that I have Ubers, and you would be correct. But they also had a lot more points to spend on other things because of that. Whereas I had to get like an Executor as my grass in this draft league. So it looks unbalanced, but it isn't, is what I'm trying to say. But that is my opponent's team.
That's the Avalon
with Polt Mega Gallade.
Yep.
But you see the Chansey, you see the Marini, you see the Mandibuzz, you see the Powdon, whatever. So my mentality in this game was get hazards up right away. I can send you the replay to this too if you want. Get hazards up right away. And start taunting things, make sure they can't recover, and then go in with Scarf Cartana or the Weakness Policy Magirna, one of the two. And then Physical Greninja was a way to
Power Punch,
what?
Power Herb, Dig.
Yeah, that was my way of dealing with Marini if Marini ended up coming. And it was a lot of fun.
That's
Here,
hilarious.
I'll show you the replay.
That's genius.
And Papio's great. He's one of the best stall players, I think, in the community. But he was very fat in terms of what he was doing. So in this game in particular, the build was around getting rocks up, getting spikes up with this taunt spike Deoxys defense, making sure he could never defog, right? I wanted to make sure I had taunt on Crocodile, taunt on Deoxys defense, and those are two things that Mandibuzz really are the two things that Mandibuzz does want to come in against. It doesn't want to come in against a Greninja. I mean, he doesn't know my set, but he doesn't want to come in against Greninja regardless.
Yeah.
Kartana I'm not bringing out till the end of the game. He definitely doesn't want to come in against Magirna, and I don't think he wants to come in against Dragonite either. So my perception is I get Mandibuzz in a position with this Crocodile where I bait it out because it resists my stabs, and I get rocks up, I taunt, I toxic it, I knock off its boots, I do all the shenanigan things to it, and all of a sudden hazards are up to stay. His way of removing them is completely neutered. And I can sort of just cripple his defense over time. It forces him to rely on his offense later. I believe sometime in this game he kind of just was like, well, this isn't going to work, so I'm just going to go for like the Mega Gallade and just start setting up. But like, I have a Deoxys that can come in, and then that's why also Scarf Cartana exists and Greninja exists as a just in case of Mega Gallade gain at hand. Shadow Sneak was broken against Mega Gallade because it was Protean boosted. So stab Shadow Sneak.
I've just got up to the point where I think we're watching at the same time. Really, you've just gone for the dig on Marini. It
worked. It was very good. I enjoyed it significantly.
So they got Dragapult.
Yeah.
Oh, Subwillow. Okay. Oh, that Joe Beat Miss is a bit rough.
Whatever.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
I knew I would be fine anyway.
Let's go Magirna.
Magirna did not go.
No? Did it struggle here?
There's a Silvally fire in my face, and I'm like, why is this here? Okay.
Yeah, it's a good bring. Good bring.
It's a good bring, and it's not a good bring. Like it sucks for me in that turn, but I can also turn to myself and say, well, I could just bring in Crook now and get my rocks up.
Yeah.
Know for a fact that Mandibuzz and Silvally are just fucked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Silvally's a fire type. It's going to take 33% now on switching.
That's true. It doesn't get the boost, does it? Not allowed to run boots on Silvally Fire.
Because it's got to hold the memory.
No, I really like the way you're dealing with the Mandibuzz and just making sure your hazards stay up. So this is again solid example of why why I think you're a very solid hazard stacking player. How to keep them up.
But it could keep against a balance build, an offense build, or a build like this that's really defensive.
Exactly.
So that's why it depends on how you play it, right? For me, in that offensive game in Svepsis, it was just getting them up for like 5 turns to give me 1 turn of momentum to capitalize on it. In this game, it was a constant awareness that I do constantly pressure Mandibuzz every single time it comes in until it's dead. So it's different.
Yeah.
That's
all you need. All you needed was a little bit of damage. If you can, knock off the Mandibuzz, which you're going to be able to do because you've got the Crocodile, and the Mandibuzz wants to come in on the Crocodile. You've got it knocked off, got it down to a certain percent where just after 1 boost with Kartana, that's GG.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that's what I think worked so well. Is I was also able to identify the move, frankly, Smart Strike, that once I baited the Marini with Power Herb Dig and weakened the Mandibuzz with the rest of my team, Steel move just went in. Like, it's a very elementary way to think about mods, and some people are like, oh, you looked at a type chart? Like, what are you? Like, you just started playing, like, Draft League, like, yesterday? Like, no, like, it's important. You know what I mean? It's like some of the best players I know Like Mount-A, whenever I build with him, whenever I team build with him, which happens a lot, he's like, yeah, just ground looks really good into this team, and it'll bring Drill Run, Lycanroc Dusk, and we'll just win, even though it's not like a coverage for one particular thing. It's just a typing looks good.
Yes,
you know? So.
yeah. And yeah, I think sometimes people focus too much on, a stab and forget that, I don't know, sometimes...
or just like trying to like be niche and weird and like trying to like, ooh, like why are you running this move? Because it looks good, but what's it for? Yeah. It's not for anything. It just has good coverage against the team. It's like, okay.
And if it just does that 20% that you need to something, it does the 20% you need, and that's, it's okay. Yep. You don't always have to win 6-0. It's okay to win 1-0, 2-0. As long as you maintain your win con and play to your objective, then, it don't matter.
Yeah.
I feel anyway. I mean,
exactly.
If you execute it every week, then it doesn't matter if you're if you go 8-0 with a +8 differential, then I think you've done all right.
Yeah. No, for sure.
So, yeah.
But yeah, that's my world of chaotic team building and stuff.
No, I thought that was really interesting. I think it was really good to get a good perspective on hazard stacking, a bit of a tutorial as well, because me personally, I've never really mastered that hazard stacking game. It's only recently I've actually been able to, in a way, appreciate that sometimes a layer of rock, sometimes stealth rocks or a single spike is all you need to,
yeah,
it's that exactly. Sometimes wins you a game.
Yeah, and 100%. And it's like, this isn't something that I'm like trying to preach to a crowd or anything. Like, it's just what I've found works for me.
Yeah.
And it frustrates myself even because I build in CGT. I was just talking about some of the mistakes I've made in CGT, but I do this in other draft leagues too, where it's like, I almost talk myself out of doing the thing that I know I'm best at doing and will like go defensive for the sake of going defensive or whatever. And it's like, it's not as good. Like, what I like about the past few months that I've been playing is I've really been able to say to myself, now I know in future drafts that this is what I should look to do rather than trying to experiment. Like, now I know what I'm best with. And now I can tailor that to myself. Like, I feel like I've been sort of now on a path of experimentation during this Wi-Fi draft league. Like, did kind of a balanced team in UBL, built a defensive team in UPBA and had to like salvage it with free agents to make it like offense. Ended up winning that league, which is great. Made a super offensive team in CBDL, which was my undefeated season, and made a kind of balance without enough pivots team in CGT, which only worked when I played a certain playstyle. So now I know like what is the right way for me to go, and moving forward in leagues, I feel more confident knowing how I should be playing. But some of that comes down to how I initially draft too, and I got to make sure I'm self-aware about that.
And in 2 weeks' time, BDSP is going to come out and it's going to remove spikes and stealth rock from the game, and you're going to have to learn how to play all over again.
Don't tell me that. No, but it's weird though, because it's like that's true. It's like I've figured this shit out now, and all of a sudden a new fucking game is coming out or whatever. Yeah. I mean, given that we might even be able to, if we're lucky, at least get one draft league in on a game that's not Sword and Shield, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I don't know.
But no, honestly, thank you so much for doing this. The series is called
Learning
with Legends.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I've definitely learned with a legend today. I think you've definitely taught me an awful lot when it comes to the whole hazard game. It's not something I think I've appreciated enough. And honestly, I'm definitely going to try and incorporate this more into my build, because I'm still finding my way. I very much enjoy offensive pivoting, and I haven't quite got it nailed down yet, and this has really helped. Definitely.
When you get it, you'll know it.
Yeah.
Like for me, it wasn't like it was like trial and error. Like it was just like I kept going for it, and eventually, like in a certain matchup, it just worked. Like when you get it and you feel comfortable with it, you'll know that like that's it. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, there's not a tried and true method of figuring it out other than just like seeing it in the game, experimenting.
No, that's brilliant. Well, again, thank you so much for doing this this recording.
Of course, yeah.
I don't know how much I'm going to edit down.
Thank you for inviting me.
But
I'm so sorry. I'm such a ranter. It's horrible.
I've not got a problem in uploading at the moment, hour and 26-minute video. I've got no problem with that, because to me this is just a learning go. If nobody watches it, that's fine. I've learned something, and that's
that's a win right there. Awesome.
But I think in total we've been in call for about 2.5, nearly going on 3 hours. So I will
when
let
did this call start?
because I know
3:30.
I
gotta go
out. So, but again, thank you so much for this.
Of course.
I hope other people learn something from it, and tune in for week 3. I don't know who that'll be with, but I'll figure it out. All right, cheers everyone. Bye.
Awesome.